I really love Chopin's piano music. And one of the reasons I like it is that it can withstand very different interpretations. Like with Chopin, you can play it if you listen to, Courtauld, Brendel, and then Rubinstein, the older, and then you listen to young pianists. It's radically different. It's radical. And it still maintains its identity, and it's still always masterful, right? And I think that's the goal of writing a piece. Like, can you, or Vivaldi, 50 years ago, nobody played Vivaldi the way we play Vivaldi today. Like, the way we play Bach has changed radically. And we have no idea how people played it in their time. But the music is powerful enough, has enough something. I don't know what it is. I wouldn't even say essence. I'm not sure it's essence. I don't know what it is. It has something, enough of that something, that lets it thrive with radically different interpretations. So especially pieces that get played a lot, I actually really like when I have radically different interpretations. And I like when conductors are not afraid to do that. Like for me, it's actually better than the ones where like, I want exactly what you meant. Because, I don't think that exactly, not to contradict what you said about embodying the composer, but I think that's part of embodying the composer, that, maybe Schubert would have conducted his Ninth Symphony faster one night than another, but he was a human being too, so.
The living, breathing part of music that's never really the same in any two performances. And I think what you spoke about is so right, that it changes based on the people who are on the stage, the city you're in. It all has an influence on how what comes across in the music itself.
Right, and I think that's, in our day and age where a lot of people are like, oh, I can watch it on YouTube, why should I go to a concert? Well, that's why you should go to a concert. It's not, that YouTube video is one option. It's one option. It's like, a lot of things you can do by watching them on YouTube, A lot of things you can just, have it ready and that's it, but it's to me, it's a little bit like those ready-made meals that you put in the microwave. Like, they will keep you alive. You will survive, yes, but is that what you want to eat every day? I don't think so. That's why I'm so always loved performances of my music, because it's a lot that it's life. It's life, and life is short. We go away, and it's real and living. A recording, it's good for the purpose of promoting the piece, but or communicating it when there's no other option. But really, music is a living thing. It's a thing that's alive in people's actions and hearts and minds. So that again, the world premiere is like the birth of a piece. So it's a very exciting experience.
Yeah. When you speak so passionately about music and about your process, I'm sure that there must be some questions from the audience for Avner. So I think at this time we'd like to open the floor up for any questions that you might have of Avner. Yes.
I'm just wondering, I'm very moved by your process, technically in terms of your brain and what instrument you play. So you compose the piano sometimes. It's hard for me to conceive of somebody composing for all these different instruments. I'm guessing you don't play all of them. How do you imagine something like the violin part that we heard? It's hard for me to think of composing that without actually being able to play it like that. But you must, because you can't play every instrument.
Yeah, completely incapable of getting anything out of the violin. And yet I write a lot for violin, and violinists like the way I write for violin. I think there's two aspects to it. It's a great question. I think one aspect is the technical aspect, and that's the aspect that you just have to master. You have to master the instrument without playing it. So I cannot play anything on a violin. I can pluck pizzicato. That's the limit of what I can do. But I can finger a Paganini caprice. Like, I studied the violin so deeply that, when I conduct, I often will say to a section, why don't you take it in this position on that string instead? And they all think that I play the violin, but I don't. I really, really don't. So it's just a matter of learning how all these techniques work. Now that's a very, very particular thing, but for example, up goes and down goes. And if you're not a musician, I'm sure you've never thought about that. But that's something that every conductor has to manage in the orchestra, in every single piece. When do they play down? When do they play up? It's really critical. And as a composer, I think you have to know all that too. If you want to write, what you heard in that little excerpt that starts having this ricochet technique. It's a common technique in violin. Paganini explored it very, very deeply. But then when you do that, you have to take into account what strings are on the violin and how far the fingers can go. So some intervals. So it's not just knowing what the book says. You really have to understand the physicality of it. So I've just worked with a lot of violinists. I've read every book I could find on the topic, and I still learn. Like that's the bottom line, is that I'm sure that tonight something will come up and I'll be like, oh my God, how could I miss that? Like the best thing is to always have someone read it for you, look at it. The other side is really, I think in our culture the term visualization, sorry. We would call this international student moment. Visualization. There's another sensory element of our brain that can work the same way, which is, you can call it ideation. You can imagine sounds to a very, very great detail. Most of us never practice that. So for example, if you try to remember someone's voice, maybe a good friend you haven't seen in whatever years, it's not easy. But if you practice it a lot, it becomes easier. And that's essentially the way that writing for, once you know the technique, you can actually start doing that. That's the other part that I do. That's why I said that a lot of times I will not use the piano. Because the piano will, piano likes certain things. But let's say you're writing for a choir. Really the piano is very deceiving. Because all the notes on the piano are as easily pressed as any other. There's no difference, right? Any note on the piano, it takes about the same amount of energy to press. But if you sing a note an octave higher than another note, it takes a huge amount of energy. The difference is just sometimes when you get to the high area of your voice, going up just a half step might require you double the energy. Then all the notes lower than that. So when you're familiar enough with the technique, you can start imagining it and then sort of express yourself through that instrument. So I would say that I think it's a live process, and I think some composers were famous for the ability to do that. Mendelssohn was probably the top person to do that. But Beethoven started out not being the best at it. Really worked on it because he was losing his hearing. And it didn't matter to him writing his Ninth Symphony being completely deaf. So you can be completely deaf physically and still imagine all this stuff. It's just a matter of practicing the ideation process. And as a teacher, those are the two things that I try to teach my students. Ideation and the technique.
Yes.
How did you get started composing? I'm sure you just didn't sit down one day and say, I want to write the song or this music. So how did you get started?
I have to try to remember. I actually...
Not that old. Come on.
Older than you think. My first instrument was a cello. I was quite old to start. I was 9. No, yeah, 9. I started the cello. I was supposed to start when you were 2, right? And I just, instead of practicing the cello, it's really hard in the beginning, especially for kids. What I would do is I would just improvise on the cello and record myself. Also on the piano without learning anything. So it was always my inclination. Then I stopped studying cello. A few years later, I started studying piano. I really wanted to study drums, but my parents were like, no drums.